Oh, landmines and jellyfish. Welcome back to Knives, I guess, and you can consider the fact that I'm still wearing pants an act of aggression right now. But we just finished off a 4-hour live stream a little while ago. That was a lot of fun. We had a great time in the chat. We had a really good group of guys in the chat tonight. I definitely enjoyed it. You guys that hung around for that whole thing, thank you so much. That was a ride. But we let the die decide the knife, and we rolled a natural 20, and that gave us the CRKT CEO. And I threw this in the box. I was like, I don't really want to do Cardboard Slayer with this thing because it's so small, and we put it through it. We put it through 3 hours and 45 minutes of non-stop cuts without stopping, except to, well, talk and go find other stuff. But that was still an ungodly amount of cardboard to put it through. And it did what it did. So you've got a thumb stud right here, and your pocket clip is tipped down. And I hate tipped down, but we all live in sin. And, you know, when I got this thing, I didn't fully understand how to use it. I was like thinking like normal thumb stud knife, where I would just open it slowly and lock it in place, and no. So that was one of the reasons it didn't get carried a whole lot. And then after I got the flipper CEO, which is a far better version, that one's tip up, which is the Lord's carry, and just easier to use. But then I was like, oh, you just do that and it pops open. And so that kind of stopped it from getting carried. But tonight we busted this thing out. And one of the first things to note, if you'll look here, all right, that pocket clip is damn near as wide as the knife itself is. And that became a problem pretty quickly, because every time I pushed into the cardboard really hard, right here, the pressure on that pocket clip would start rolling it out of my hand. So we were about 5 or 10 minutes in, something like that, and the pocket clip came off. That got popped right off, which made that situation a whole lot better. And it cut reasonably well. Like, it kind of blazed through some stuff. This is a very slicey blade. It did do a good job cutting, and I fed it some much more hardcore cardboard than we've been feeding stuff, because I happened to pick up some really beefy stuff from work. And at the 3-hour 45-minute mark, I started seeing some wear popping up about here, and about here. There was just a couple spots that hung up when we were doing the copy paper cuts after that 3 hours and 45 minutes. And that was pretty non-stop cutting. You know, there were a couple times I had to get up and go get a knife to show somebody on the stream or something like that. But, I mean, that was a ton of cardboard. And, you know, just the fact that it took that much, it's 8 CR. That's about what I expected. You know, and that's what we're getting on these CR series steels. Okay, your first hour, the really fine edge on the apex, the really fine apex goes away. It's still cutting strong. It still does copy paper well enough. Oh, I almost died. But it still does copy paper well enough, you know, all the things. And then at the 2-hour mark, it's still going about the same. 3-hour mark, you start getting a loud cut on the copy paper. And getting about towards the 4-hour mark, you start seeing where it's got worn spots that hang up on that cut. So that was about what I expected out of it. You know, just everything we've tested so far, pretty much. We've had the old 440 from the 1980s that held up to about 2.5 hours before it started showing that kind of wear. We had the Ozark Trail from Walmart that took an hour to show that kind of wear. And then the Winchester from '07 that took, I think, about maybe 3 hours before it started showing that kind of wear. So your older steels and whatever the hell Walmart used, we think it might be 420J2. You know, the older steels don't hold up as well as the new steels. And, you know, it's a hell of a time to be a knife guy, because you can get, you know, 8 CR, 9 CR on like a $12 knife. Like, no problems. And, you know, so like for me, the more I do this, the more I learn that the particular blade steel on a knife is not a big deal to me unless we're talking about price points. You know, once I get up above around 12, 13 bucks, yeah, 3 CR, 5 CR ain't gonna cut it. You know, once I get up closer to 20, like 7 CR ain't gonna do it. You know, it's like gotta be 8 CR above. And that's just for edge retention and for my own peace of mind. Like, you know, I know like these are all budget steels and 20 bucks is nothing, but still, like I don't want to spend the same money on a 3 CR knife that I would spend on something that came with 9 CR. You know, there's no point. But, you know, we did that 3 hours and 45 minutes. We had a ton of fun in the chat, all that stuff, but we took it to the strop for around 1.5 to 2 minutes. Not as thorough of a strop as I've been doing, and one thing to note is the factory edge had a bit more grind mark on it going down to the apex than a lot of them have, and the strop made it a lot more shiny, but I can also still see the factory grind marks on there. So the short time on the strop didn't do as much for this one as it has done for other knives, and I've done a bunch of cuts on my last take. I think I made it to 7 cuts before I finally borked one, which means this take isn't going to go so good. Buckle your underwear. Let's find out. But, you know, it's still picked up a keen enough edge to start cutting the paper, you know, reasonably cleanly again. Like this was about what it was like after the first hour, and I did shave a little bit with it after I stropped it. It did shave. It took some work, but it shaved. So, like, it responded well to the strop, but not as well as other blades have, and that might just be because it's a harder steel and I didn't give it as much time. But, you know, it's still going through some of the more difficult to cut papers. Like, it's not giving me trouble there. I mean, that is still really good performance for coming off a strop after that many hours. And again, it was a shorter strop than usual just because I was tired and trying to wrap the stream up, but, you know, that stuff is notorious for hanging up and not cutting. Like, it picked up an acceptably nice edge. Let's take a shot at some print paper. Let's see what we get here. And there's not really any resistance at all. There's not. So, it sharpened back up pretty good off of the strop. Like, this could use some time on a stone, or I could use a whole nother cycle of stropping, but, you know, 3 hours and 45 minutes of just plowing through cardboard with 2 minutes on the strop, and we're back to there again. So, like, it definitely did good. It did about what I expected for a CR series steel, and, I will say something that's got this small of a handle is not fun to cut with for that long. But the ergos were good enough that I didn't have to stop and switch knives. So it's got that over the ST-155. That knife sucks. I'm going to complain about that for a while. Yeah, so I mean, honestly, if you're thinking about getting a CRKT CEO, go ahead and get the flipper tab version. Skip this one. The flipper tab's just so much better. However, if you already have this one, you've got a good one on your hands. Like, it's still a good knife. And one of the things that I like about this thing, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in the video, but, you know, you can clip this into a shirt pocket, and it could pass for a nicer pin. You know, that's part of the point behind this thing, is it can be kind of incognito. Now, the flipper tab does that a little bit better, but, you know, one of the things I picked up from my uncle is kind of the thought process of how can I hide weapons on myself without them being easily visible. And he put a lot of effort into that. It's just kind of a passing thought for me now, but, you know, back in the day, like, my brain really keyed into that. So, like, that's not my primary focus now. That's not how I think these days, but when I find stuff like this, it's just cool. And it's definitely a cool knife. Either version is cool, and I know they've released a million other versions, but I happen to have this one and the first flipper tab they came out with. So, yeah, I just wanted to share with y'all, like every other live stream knife, how this one did, how it handled, what the experience was like. And again, it handled well. It did exactly what I expected for a CR series steel. The ergos weren't the best for a lot of hardcore cuts, but that's not what this is designed for. And if you're going to be pushing this through some heavy material, like if you have to, this pocket clip's going to be a big pain in the ass. But yeah, I mean, it did pretty much exactly what I expected. So, that's what happened there. That's my CRKT CEO and how it did with Cardboard Slayer. And all that being said, thanks for looking at my crap. Subscribers, you guys are still coming in. There were a few more in today. I am so grateful. It is humbling that you guys are watching this stuff and getting something out of it. Comments, I love a little bit of feedback. Let me know what you think about what this thing did. If you have one, let me know what you think about it. You know, let's light it up in the comments. And all that being said, y'all have a nice day.